Turning attention now to Ukraine, where the Ukrainian President Zelensky has publicly acknowledged for the first time that his troops are active in Russia's Belgorod region, which borders Ukraine. Zelensky stated that Ukraine is conducting operations in the border areas, called the action absolutely just, noting that the war must return to where it came from. His comments also refer to Russia's Kursk region, where Ukraine retains control of a small area following a massive offensive last year. But Moscow has regained most of that territory. Zelensky has, in fact, minutes ago posted our military captured two Chinese citizens with a purported video of the two who were fighting as part of the Russian army. This took place on Ukrainian territory. In Donetsk, there are documents of these prisoners, bank cards, personal data. That's what he's saying. And he went on to claim, having information that there are significantly more such Chinese citizens in Russian units. Now, where is this war headed? The fact that there is now possibility of Ukrainian troops inside Russian territory, the fact that they are now capturing some of these Chinese troops, what does this indicate? Where is the war headed? Siddharth Rajoli, who's a researcher on Russia, joins me. He's working at the ORF. Siddharth, how do you see this development? Because to me, it indicates that the war now looks far from over. Any peace talks that were looking now don't look so promising.
Indeed, yes. This will complicate any kind of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, especially. But unlike the Kursk incursion that happened last year, this one seems to be like a defensive move to ensure that Russia, who's actually Russian forces which have taken back much of the territories in Kursk, to ensure that troops don't spill over to Sumy region in Ukraine. It's to ensure that it's just to stall the advance of the Russian forces into Ukrainian territory. Zelensky has made this move. But it's also to be understood that Belgorod has been at the forefront of Ukrainian attacks since the invasion began. This region has been subject to artillery and drone strikes. I mean, since March 18th, about 49 drone attacks were conducted on the region. This even including energy strikes. At present, Ukraine has control of Demidovka, as 7 kilometers into the Russian border. This also comes in light of Russia's capture of Shujats to ensure that Ukrainian forces are, trying to stall the Russia's advance into Ukraine, and it's also to be understood that the Russian forces, like when Ukraine invaded Kursk last year, Russian forces declared emergency in 3 and 4 regions.
But
So
Siddharth,
one of the regions was Belgorod.
I want to ask about one thing that Zelensky just tweeted, saying that we need to bring the war back to where it started. What does that mean? What's that message that President Zelensky is sending?
I think the message President Zelensky is trying to send that the war started on February 24, 2022, with Russian forces entering Ukraine from 5 axes. One of the axes was from the Sumy region in Ukraine. So the troops crossed in from Belgorod to Ukraine. Presumably, that could be what Zelensky is trying to talk about. And on another note, when on the Chinese soldiers fighting in the Russian armed forces, we have to understand that a lot of troops from various nations have been fighting in the Russian army. They may not necessarily be soldiers, but they may just be
mercenaries. They may be mercenaries. There were North Korean soldiers earlier, but the presence of Chinese soldiers does complicate things, doesn't it?
Actually, it's quite difficult. It's not an easy answer because at first we're not certain of their nationality to begin with. The Western sources indicated that more than 12,000 North Korean troops were fighting in Russia, but there was no conclusive satellite evidence of the same as well. So I think the incident of Chinese soldiers fighting in Ukraine requires a bit more investigation and a bit more time. So far, if you go across Russian media, on the recent news, I think there's nothing much reported apart from routine strikes against Belgorod since 18th of March. But then, the media has not reported in Russia that anything significant has happened. Yesterday was the first time President Zelensky reported of something at this level, that the Ukrainian forces were in Belgorod.
And finally, very quickly, it seems that President Trump is preoccupied with tariffs right now. And the peace talks with Russia, Ukraine seems to have gone to the back burner. You think so?
Yes, I think this is it has complicated the peace talks because as far as I remember, last year, before the Kursk incursion happened, there were peace talks scheduled to happen in Qatar on, stalling attacks on energy infrastructure. So I think this will complicate peace talks, but then we have to remember that Zelensky labeled this as a defensive move and not an offensive one. So I think even that also has certain calculation.
All right. Let's leave it there, Siddharth. Thanks much for joining me
Thank you so much.
to decode that development.